Wenn wir marschieren, ziehen wir zum deutschen Tor hinaus, schwarz-braunes Meer.
After the First World War, the defeated German army was restricted in size and forbidden from modernizing. When the Third Reich era began on 30 January 1933, the army began a new period of transformation to allow it to carry out Hitler's aggressive foreign policy. This video will examine how the German army's basic combat uniform evolved during its expansion, modernization, politicization, and eventual decline from 1933 to 1945. The German soldier emerged from the World War wearing a field gray uniform, cloth puttees, and a steel trench helmet. By 1933, there was still little to distinguish German soldiers from their wartime counterparts. Tall marching boots, in English sometimes called jackboots, were reintroduced in the post-war period. Equipment, wool trousers, and Reichswehr tunic were similar to the wartime design. Collar patches displaying the soldier's branch color were in use by 1933. Shoulder straps displayed the soldier's regiment, and unlike wartime practice, the numeral was also in the soldier's branch color. White denoted infantry. Numbered buttons indicated the soldier's company within the regiment. The 1916 helmet was still in use, among other styles, and a field cap with a cloth peak was also worn. In 1933, a new tunic, properly called a FELDBLUSE, was introduced. The entire blouse, including collar and shoulder straps, were in the same shade of field gray as the rest of the uniform. On the 14th of March, a new tricolor decal in national colors was added to the left side of the helmet. On 17 February 1934, the decal was moved to the right side of the helmet, and at the same time a new national insignia was added to the chest. This breast eagle was rendered in white on a field gray backing. On 5 April 1934, a new tricolor decal was introduced, and the Army received its own decal on the left side of the helmet. In late 1934, a new field blouse with dark field gray collar and shoulder straps was introduced. This tunic also had internal suspenders to support the belt and equipment. A more practical field cap was introduced in 1934. On 1 July 1935, a new steel helmet was introduced. On 10 September 1935, the collar of the field blouse was changed to dark green. The collar patches were also modified to include a dark green stripe in the center, with the patch sewn to a dark green backing before attachment to the blouse. In December 1935, dark green cloth was approved for the shoulder straps as well. In January 1936, the older pattern belt buckles with the insignia of the Weimar Republic were replaced with a new Wehrmacht pattern. And on 19 June 1937, a new breast eagle rendered in white on a dark green background was introduced. On 26 November 1938, further changes to insignia included the removal of the service color from the collar patches, replaced by dark green stripes for all branches. To better display the branch's service color, piping was added to the shoulder straps, which were also changed in shape at this time. On 5 February 1939, the breast eagle changed once more, from white to a more subdued silver gray on green background. On April 18, 1939, new equipment suspenders were introduced to help support the equipment belt. At some point in 1939, company numbers were ordered removed from the uniform. It was this uniform that the German army wore during the victorious first year of the war, and for decades, Hollywood firmly cemented this uniform into the minds of television and movie audiences. German soldiers were invariably depicted in 1940-era double-decal helmets, high leather marching boots, and so-called M36 field blouses, no matter what period was being portrayed. The truth was somewhat different, and this high watermark of uniform and insignia quality began to deteriorate even before France surrendered in June 1940. On 9 November 1939, with the war only 2 months old, the marching boots were shortened as a leather conservation measure. On 1 March 1940, the tricolor decal was ordered removed from the right side of the helmet. 3 weeks later, new M35 helmets had a rough texture added at the factory. Sometime in 1940, new field blouses began to be manufactured with a field gray collar. The universal pattern collar patches were stitched directly to the collar, as the dark green backing no longer matched the uniform. On 9 May 1940, likely in response to the deletion of dark green collars, the collar patches were changed to their final form, with mouse gray stripes replacing the dark green. The breast eagle was also changed to a subdued mouse gray color on a field gray backing. Shoulder straps were changed from dark green to field gray in 1940 as well, and regimental numbers were officially removed. At some point in 1940, cloth slip-ons bearing embroidered regimental designations were introduced. Production of the pre-war stone gray trousers ceased in 1940 in favor of field gray to match the field blouse. Ankle boots and cloth gaiters had been approved as early as 1940. At first only used by rear area troops, they saw increased usage even in frontline units as the war went on. As well, equipment belts and suspenders made of cotton webbing, designed for tropical use, saw increasing usage as the war went on due to shortages of leather. On 26 May 1941, a sixth button was added to the front of the field blouse. The white cotton undershirt became available in field gray beginning in July 1941. At some point in 1942, the branch of service piping was ordered removed from the field cap, and on 21 July 1942, a new field cap was introduced with folding down ear flaps. The field blouse was further modified in 1942 to conserve material by removing the pleats from the pockets. The M35 helmet was also simplified to save production time. The bottom edge is no longer rolled, leaving a raw finish. The field blouse was modified still further in 1943 by removing the scallops on the pocket flaps. The blouse was increasingly worn with an open collar, and the color of the wool shifted as artificial and other fibers such as wood were used to compensate for wool shortages. On 11 June 1943, a peak was added to the field cap similar to the specialized caps worn by mountain troops and with the tropical uniform. On 28 August 1943, the Army Eagle decal was deleted from the left side of the helmet. As the war progressed, black boots gave way to natural brown. On 25 September 1944, a brand new uniform was issued featuring a shortened Eisenhower-style field blouse, matching trousers, and a new triangular-shaped breast eagle. Since the war, English-speaking hobbyists have imposed their own nomenclature on the study of German Army uniforms, equipment, and insignia. To a German soldier at the time, however, his tunic was simply called a field blouse, regardless of its details. Yet in English, terms like M35, M43, etc. have come to be common, and while not always accurate, do at least provide a smaller amount of precision to a subject that is much more complex than suggested by this short video. When changes occurred to uniform and insignia at the factory, older uniforms and equipment continued to be worn side by side with the new ones. Old stocks were inventoried alongside new stocks. Altehasen, veteran soldiers, clung to older kit since they knew replacements would be inferior in quality. German combat gear was produced in multiple factories from dwindling stocks of raw materials, leading to many variants of basic items aside from the official pattern changes. Shortages compelled the use of converted foreign uniforms, and soldiers sometimes upgraded later pattern uniforms with older insignia or dark green collars. The Field Uniform 44 was to be an exception, evidence perhaps of a belated desire for standardization. By September 1944, with Allied troops already on German soil, it was too little too late, and the German army fought to the end in a mishmash of increasingly poor quality field gear. It's only in recent years that motion picture and television costumers have accurately captured the true look of the German army during its years of decline and ultimate defeat. Now, if we could just get film and television directors to stop doing that stupid Navy SEAL high-ready weapons carry. But that's a topic for another time.